Once upon a time, in a quiet village, there lived a sweet and gentle girl named Ella. Her life had been filled with love and laughter until her mother passed away. Soon after, her father remarried, and Ella found herself living with her new stepmother, Madame Clarice, and her two stepsisters, Drusilla and Anastasia. Though Ella hoped for kindness, she quickly discovered that her stepmother and stepsisters had hearts full of cruelty and jealousy. "Ella, why are you still sitting there?" Madame Clarice snapped one morning, as Ella sat by the hearth, scrubbing the floor. "The house isn't going to clean itself." Drusilla laughed wickedly. "She's only good for the cinders. Maybe we should call her Cinderella." Anastasia joined in with a smirk. "She doesn't need pretty clothes like us. Rags suit her just fine." Ella said nothing, keeping her head down, though her heart ached. She dreamed of a better life, far away from her stepfamily's harsh words and endless chores. One day, a royal messenger arrived at their home with exciting news. The prince was hosting a grand ball at the palace, and all the young women in the kingdom were invited. Madame Clarice and the stepsisters squealed with delight. "Imagine, girls," said Madame Clarice, her eyes gleaming. "One of you could become a princess if the prince chooses you." Drusilla and Anastasia began planning their dresses, completely ignoring Ella. "Can I go to the ball too?" Ella asked timidly. The room fell silent, and then Drusilla burst into laughter. "You? At the palace?" Anastasia added, "What would you wear?" "Your filthy rags?" Madame Clarice sneered. "If you finish all your chores and somehow find a suitable dress, then you may go. But we both know that won't happen." The day of the ball arrived, and Ella worked from dawn until dusk, cleaning and preparing her stepsisters for the event. Drusilla wore a gown of deep purple, and Anastasia donned one of emerald green. Madame Clarice looked on proudly as they twirled in front of the mirror. As they left for the palace, Ella's heart sank. She had worked so hard, but there was no way she could attend. She sat by the fireplace, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, a soft voice interrupted her sorrow. "Why are you crying, my dear?" Ella looked up and gasped. In front of her stood a kind woman with sparkling eyes and a gentle smile. Who are you?" Ella asked. "I am your fairy godmother," the woman replied with a wink. "And I'm here to help you. You deserve to go to the ball, Ella." With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother transformed the room. The nearby pumpkin grew larger and larger, turning into a magnificent golden coach. 4 mice from the kitchen turned into proud horses, and a rat became the coachman. Then, with another flick of her wand, Ella's ragged dress turned into a shimmering gown of silver and blue, and on her feet appeared the most delicate glass slippers. Ella spun around in delight. "It's beautiful. Thank you." "Now, remember," the fairy godmother said, "the magic will only last until midnight. You must leave the ball before the clock strikes 12. "I will," Ella promised, and she stepped into the coach, her heart full of excitement. When Ella arrived at the palace, everyone stopped and stared at the mysterious beauty who stepped out of the golden coach. Even her stepsisters didn't recognize her as she glided into the ballroom. The prince, tall and handsome, immediately noticed her and approached. "May I have this dance?" he asked, bowing deeply. Ella's heart fluttered. "Yes, your highness," she said softly. They danced together, lost in each other's eyes. The night felt like a dream, and Ella had never been so happy. But as the evening wore on, she suddenly heard the first stroke of midnight. "Dawn," she gasped. "Oh no, I must go." Without another word, Ella pulled away from the prince and ran out of the ballroom. The prince called after her, but she couldn't stop. As she hurried down the palace steps, one of her glass slippers slipped off her foot, but she didn't have time to retrieve it. She climbed into her coach just as the clock struck midnight. The magic faded, and Ella found herself back in her ragged clothes, standing on the side of the road. But her heart still raced with the memory of the night. The next day, the entire kingdom buzzed with news. The prince had found the glass slipper on the palace steps and was determined to find the girl who had worn it. He traveled from house to house, searching for the one whose foot fit the tiny slipper. When the prince arrived at Ella's house, Drusilla and Anastasia eagerly pushed forward to try on the slipper. Drusilla forced her foot into the shoe, but it was too small. Anastasia tried next, but no matter how hard she pushed, it wouldn't fit. "Is there anyone else in the house?" the prince asked. Madame Clarice hesitated. No one else," she lied. But just then, Ella appeared in the doorway. "I'd like to try," she said softly. Her stepsisters gasped, and Madame Clarice sneered, but the prince knelt before Ella and offered her the slipper. It slipped onto her foot as if it had been made for her. "It's you," the prince said, smiling as he stood. "You're the one I danced with." Ella blushed, and at that moment, her fairy godmother appeared again, transforming her rags back into the stunning gown from the ball. The prince took her hand and said, "Will you come with me to the palace?" Ella sonrió a través de sus lágrimas. Yes. And so, Ella left her cruel step-family behind and married the prince, living happily ever after. As for her stepsisters, though they were jealous at first, Ella forgave them, showing that kindness always triumphs over cruelty.